I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to our regular meeting. Today is September 24th, 2013. It is approximately 6:36. Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Mayor Cordova?
Here.
Councilmember Peralta?
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Present.
Councilmember Silva?
I'm here.
Youth Councilmember Landgraf?
Okay, we have quorum. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And go to item number 4, approval of the agenda. Oscar, you have a change in the agenda proposed?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We had put in there just as an item to follow up the talks we had with the county today, item number 10B. I'm sorry, let me turn it on. We had put in there item 10B as a follow-up to the talks we had with the county today. It doesn't seem to be a need for that now, so I would respectfully request that it be taken off.
Okay. Okay, any other changes, proposed changes or amendments? Entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved. Second.
Motion to second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we will go to item 5A, approval of the August 26th meeting minutes, regular meeting minutes. Is there any changes to those meeting minutes as presented?
I have none, Mr. Mayor. Move for approval.
Second. Motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we will go to awards and recognitions, and we have the police chief make a presentation. You want to make a presentation to the council? Chief, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. Sergeant Vigil, can you come up here, please? Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, on August 3rd, 2013, Sergeant Vigil was instrumental in the safe and effective apprehension of a suicidal subject. During this event, he was involved in a lengthy foot chase, then contained this individual away from innocent onlookers. The suspect then armed himself with a deadly weapon and proceeded to approach Sergeant Vigil in an apparent suicide by cop scenario. Using Sergeant Vigil's training, experience, and common sense, he was able to evaluate this deadly force encounter, and he successfully stopped this action. But of note, the reason for this commendation is that in his evaluation, he used the least amount of force which was necessary to stop the actions. So therefore, I commend you for your decisive actions, and thank you very much. Challenge coin for you. All right. And that. Thank you.
I just want to say, Chief, that it's been my experience with Officer Vigil, Sergeant Vigil, that clearly he's one of Taos's finest. He's very professional. He always thinks things thoroughly. I've seen him firsthand dealing with situations, and it's a pleasure to have individuals such as Sergeant Vigil serving our police force. So, and thank you to the families for allowing him to serve our beautiful community. So thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Congratulations again. Next, we will go to item 7, Citizens Forum. Those wishing to speak on the Citizens Forum, is there anyone that would like to speak under the Citizens Forum at this time? Mr. Northrop, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. As I was leaving this meeting 2 weeks ago, Rudy loudly proclaimed that my just concluded presentation was 100% lies. The purpose of citizens' forums is to allow citizens to address elected officials, not to be berated by them. You are free to ask me questions at any time, which I often ask you to do, and it rarely happens. You have no right to take cheap shots at citizens. Bullying people may have worked in the military for Rudy, but it doesn't work here. The day after this meeting, Councilman Gonzalez appeared on Darren's radio station, KVOT. He labeled me a liar as well. Andrew, you'll need to look long and hard to find a person more logical, fair, truthful, or having my integrity. Like the other three in front of me, you are a disgrace to the elected position you hold. The four of you spoke of public safety as a reason for you all blindly supporting moving the E91 communication center from its perfectly acceptable spot on Civic Plaza Drive to the Kit Carson Electric Co-op building on Goosdorf. Myself, former Councilman Gene Sanchez, journalist Bill Whaley, and other community members frequently spoke of the folly and corruption of this ridiculous plan. To justify the mounting criticism, you commissioned a bogus study a year ago, wasting taxpayer dollars in an attempt to cover up your evil plot. Sure enough, the bought-off Bud Lake ignored, lied, and distorted.
Mr. Northrop, you say that you don't lie. You said Mr. Lake was bought off. Do you have any evidence of that whatsoever?
Well, just the report itself is the most ridiculous document I've ever seen.
What deems you as an expert?
You don't have to be an expert to see what a bunch of nonsense this thing is.
Okay.
Thank you. The bought-off Bud Lake ignored, lied, and distorted to produce the report.
But you're saying bought off.
Well,
you're
you paid him
action.
to produce a report that has no value, that only the report could have been written before he ever hired him, before he ever stepped foot in any of the in the Civic Plaza Drive location, or before he ever thought about the.
So it's merely your opinion.
Thank you. Lake lied about the Civic Plaza Drive facility, making one ridiculous claim after another, including a cost of $1.5 million for asbestos remediation, when in fact there is no asbestos to be removed. He spoke of bathroom odors, dust bunnies, and the availability of only 3 windows that could be opened. At the same time, he glorified the command center, failing to note, among other things, that first, the original plans for the command center were scaled back to produce a most ordinary office building.
Please.
The facility sits in a
wind
hole.
down your comments, please.
Well, I believe I had 5 minutes. I don't think I've approached that.
Your time has expired.
I would like
I'll
another
allow you a couple more minutes.
One more minute will be sufficient. Thank you. The facility sits in a hole with the property sitting in a FEMA-designated floodplain. Lake mentioned the awkward situation of the communications dispatch tower staying at the Civic Plaza Drive location, but quickly acknowledged that this was not a problem. However, the flooding danger and the breakdown in transmissions are problems, as we're beginning to learn, in spite of the town's attempted cover-ups. Lake said on page 39 of his report that the old dispatch facility, quote, has no advantages. On page 42, he said that the command center has no disadvantages. I suggest that Lake pretty much had it backwards, and that the smartest move for the county and town would be to return to the safe Civic Plaza Drive location. And one other thing, this November 19th will be the anniversary of the 50th year that Smith's Gas has come to Taos, and I suggest you try to do something to memorialize that, possibly even inviting 1 or 2 dignitaries from their home office in Salt Lake City to come to Taos and give them a plaque, and maybe finding a place for them to stay at no cost and so forth. It certainly has been a remarkable saving for the citizens of Taos. Any questions?
Mr. Northrop, I noticed you don't have your badges on today.
No, I forgot to put them on. I can go out in the car and get them if you'd like.
Yeah.
But actually, I don't have time. I take a class on Tuesday nights, and I have to leave the class to come over here, and I'll return to the class now. However, next week I'll wear the badges. Following week, rather.
All right.
Mr. Mayor. Jeff, I wanted to ask you with regards to what I called you out on as a liar. Do you remember what that was?
Yes, I think you said that I had accused you of missing town council meetings. In fact, I hadn't. I had accused you of being late for meetings.
About not being there is what you said. That's on record. And I told you to challenge that record with our clerk because I haven't missed a meeting.
I didn't say you'd missed a meeting.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge, all I have ever said is that you were frequently late.
Thanks, Mr. Northrop.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak under the Citizens Forum this time? Welcome to our meeting. Please state your name for the record, please.
Hi, Philip Alexander Econom, owner of Taos Motorsports. Last time I was here in front of the council, I addressed the problem with the Taos new street vendors on Thursdays. Yet I've yet to see no change in this, especially around the plaza area and on Civic Center Drive and Salazar and Upper Ranchitos Road. I've been looking all day long for the street vendor ordinance online. I have not been able to find it. I'd like it read from the town attorney so that we all can hear it and understand it. And after the next day, after I attended this council meeting, the publisher from the Taos News came to my shop and asked me what my problem was, that they had a special ordinance to sell papers on the street. Do they have a special ordinance to sell papers on the street? Are they so special that nobody else can sell anything on the street and be obnoxious, impede traffic, cause almost accidents? Mr. Silva witnessed that at one point. I even spoke with the chief at one point afterwards of the meetings. He said they watched. Yeah, there is a problem, that Mr. James here was looking into seeing what can be enforced. And you know, as far as I know, Mr. Mayor, it isn't, and it is not, and it will never be an impairment of the First Amendment. I mean, what's it going to take? Someone to get killed here? As I almost did one Thursday morning? No, I mean, something needs to be done. Something needs to be enforced. It's not, and then the publisher also mentioned, well, these people are disabled, they have jobs. I mean, they need this job to make ends meet, stuff like that. So they cause an accident. Maybe someone gets hurt. Maybe someone dies. Are they going to be liable for it? No, they're contracted under the Taos News. Next thing they're going to do is go after the town because the law was not enforced. What are we going to do about this, Mr. Mayor and Council?
Okay.
I mean, it's the law. It's written down. You guys wrote it. You guys need to implement it, and you need to enforce it. And something needs to be done. And I don't appreciate this guy coming to my place of business and telling me he has a special ordinance to sell papers on the street. See, there he was putting himself before his contractors.
Sure. Okay, I would recommend, Oscar, if we can get a hold of this gentleman and see exactly explain what ordinances we have, and then also do a legal review internally as to what issues, work with the police department and see what traffic issues have been caused and the severity of the issues. I have witnessed it myself, and we're not in any way trying to stop the newspaper from selling papers, but we just want to make sure that everyone is safe, including the vendors themselves.
Well,
and I've seen it on Camino de la Merced, where they're actually in the actual median, that little part there where semi-trucks will turn into that area, and they need to take the wide corner, and the guy has had to move his stuff while a Walmart truck is trying to get in, and the guy's moving his newspapers. So it's a very dangerous
They're on the
situation.
main arteries into town, all right? I mean, and especially we don't need someone in front of the plaza causing more problems than there is between the hours of 7 and 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, geez, it takes, it's enough to do the El Prado crawl into town, but then, you come down to the plaza and you're sitting there and you're stopped there 5 lights because some guy's in the middle of the street pushing papers on people aggressively, not normally. I've noticed several other of the vendors do it right. They sit on the side of the road, they wait till someone calls, they walk over there, sell their paper, and go back. They're not impeding traffic, they're not in the way, they're not in this. In fact, they're sitting in chairs.
Yeah. Okay.
I see it on Kit Carson Road. I see it down there on Estes Road where my home's at. And it's, those guys are doing it right, like I said before. But to have this guy, the publisher, come to my place of business and tell me he has a special ordinance to sell the papers on the street, I would like to know what that is. And I'd also like to know, like I said, I've been looking for it all day long online, and I haven't been able to find it. Maybe I don't know how to access it or what, but I would like to get a copy of that and see that.
Okay.
And then see it. It's your law. You need to enforce it. Like I said, what's it going to take? Someone get killed?
Sure. Madam Clerk, if we could take this as a public records request to get him that, if it exists, an ordinance exists.
If I may speak,
And that,
I've seen that ordinance, and it is a special exemption they have in the town
again note that this itinerant vendor ordinance is not in the code where you'd expect it to be. I'll tell the gentleman it's in Chapter 5, Section 12. You go to the town website, and there's a section called Town Code. And if you look, the itinerant vendor ordinance is in Title 5.
Okay. Thank you. for
Mr.
your
Mayor,
comments. Councilmember
with
Gonzalez.
regards to that, I mean, I guess I do have issues too with, if it's in there for street vending with regards to the newspaper, what's to stop anybody else any other day of the week of doing it? And I think maybe it's something we probably need to address and look at so that it doesn't open up a can of worms with everything
Chief.
else.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Since the last time the gentleman was here, this has been on my radar. I have a phone call in the circulation department from the newspaper. My hope was to be able to figure out a solution, at the same time keep these people employed. And so far I've had 2 attempts for the circulation department to give me a call. They haven't. So I'll renew my attempts tomorrow. So this certainly has been on our radar. It is a concern. We have been trying to address it. I think tomorrow I'll just end up in their office and walk on in, do it in person.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Please keep us posted, maybe CC on an update on that. Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak under the Citizens Forum at this time? Seeing none, we will close the Citizens Forum and move on with the agenda. Next, we have 3 items on the consent agenda. Consideration, and I'll read the consent agenda. If there's any items that the council wants to remove for discussion, we can do so at the end of the consent. Contract TT 14100 snow removal equipment building for construction. That is for Desert Utility Paving LLC. Item B, consideration approval of contract TT 1418 with Community Against Violence in the amount of $139,702. Item C, consideration and approval of Resolution 1349 budget adjustment requests for various funds as defined in the agenda. Council members.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
If I could, I just have one request, and that is on the contracts, either in the, am I on?
It's on here.
Hello, mine's on.
Is this channel on there maybe?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just under the contracts, either in the backup information or on the contract itself, if we could have the address of the contractor.
Okay.
It'd just be nice to know if you don't recognize who the contractor is, where they're from. So, for example, on the one for the snow removal building, I was just curious, because I never heard of the company before, as to whether they're local or not local. It didn't seem like they were, but, you know. And the other question I had on this is, and has nothing to do with the contract, but the reason for the low turnout on the bids, is that because of the new requirements under federal law that they have to be registered and comply with all that other garbage?
Yeah, we have our airport director here. John, do you know if Desert Utility is local or non-local?
Mayor, council members, they are not local. I believe they're out of Arizona. We only got two bids, and it was advertised in the Albuquerque Journal and the Taos News, both for the required length of time, I believe 30 days.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Silva?
question for John. Do you, what do you suspect is the reason why we are not getting any more local participation or any at all?
We did have some locals that went out and well, they attended the pre-bid meeting as subcontractors, but not as the builder themselves, not as the contractor. I really don't know what the reason was for the low turnout.
Okay. Well, all we can do is try.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, but Councilman Peralta is correct. There are new rules, literally like just months old, by the federal government that all vendors who propose to projects funded with federal contracts have to be pre-registered in this new system, and apparently that has, at least for the time being, knocked out a lot of people. I don't know if that was the effect here, but
And I
we
do
did hear this
know
complaint.
that the whole process of getting registered, I at one time had a contract with the Forest Service here in town and had to register. I had to get a Dun and Bradstreet registration number. I mean, it's a whole long process. It's not something that you can say, okay, we're invited to bid. We have 30 days to get a bid in. Sometimes it takes longer than that for the whole registration process to go through. So that's possibly a reason, because now like Oscar said, the requirements are more strict, and you have to be registered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As a point of information, they're out of Albuquerque online.
Yeah, we just don't know why it happened.
I believe it's on Channel 7.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Gonzalez.
we could call for a 5-minute recess, please.
We're going to check the audio on the on this channel, so if we can do a 5-minute recess, that'll be good.
You can fix it.
He's going to. Item A is, any other comments or questions? If not, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll go to item B, Cooperative Marketing Grant Agreement, consideration and possible approval of New Mexico Tourism Department Cooperative Grant Agreement in the amount of $40,000 and with an in-kind match of $40,000 to promote the same at the same time New Mexico and the Taos area by advertising through various forms of media. Oscar?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, this is the second year that we won this grant. In essence, what it is a competition that's sponsored by the State Tourism Department, where they invite local governments like Taos or local communities to propose a program that the state of New Mexico considers to be in line with their marketing goals and their marketing strategies. And so if the local communities will match them 1-to-1, they'll give you up to $40,000 grant. So we applied again and won again. This year, by the way, we are one of 2 applicants from the region. So maybe there'll be an announcement later on that there was another award in the region.
What is the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion to approve. Any discussion? Councilmember Peralta?
Mayor, just for information, this afternoon on the Channel 4 News was an ad for Taos. And they had different shots of the environment of Taos. So it was a decent ad, but I would like to see a little more activity in the ad rather than just still pictures.
All right. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we will go to item C, Resolution 1345, accepting real property, consideration and possible approval of Resolution 1345, accepting real property donation located at 812 Gustav Road, known as the Mary D. Medina Building. Council members. Councilmember Peralta.
Mr. Mayor, is this in a floodplain?
You never know, but
It actually is.
one thing's for sure is it's going to end up in the dump.
We know the architect.
We know the architect.
We know the
yeah.
architect.
But, Mr. Mayor, it has been flooded in the past.
Yeah.
Fact.
Okay. Council members, this is something that we worked on a few years ago when the legislature didn't have any dollars to give out. They were just completely dry, and we made an attempt to try to get something out of the legislature, and we looked at this building. I don't know if it's a liability or if it's something that we were able to get, but there's property value on it. Clearly, I think there's some serious issues on the design, the way it was built, and but I think that it could be used for
Salvage.
The property of it itself.
Affordable housing.
Yeah. So.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to know if the chief still wants to move in there.
Mr. Peralta, I don't think so, sir.
And the state of New Mexico, typically when they give buildings like this, they want something in return, and we were trying to negotiate that minimal return. Did we have to meet that requirement?
$10.
$10? Are you serious? Okay. Well, good negotiating there, Brian.
Mr. Mayor,
I
don't know,
have
that
to give
seems
credit
awful high
where
to me.
credit's due
I
here.
think you spend $9 too much.
The $10 was negotiated by Cindy Perez. She did this entire thing, and trying to get a gift from the state of New Mexico was just watching her do this. Very similar, I think, to getting blood out of a turnip. But she finally stayed with it, and for $10, we got what we got, which
Right.
is probably a good deal. I think they praised it over $400,000.
Great. Great. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we will go to item C, consideration possible approval of Resolution 1348, replacing Resolution 1255, establishing policies and procedures for issuing special dispenser permits.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council, all this item does is remove the requirement that applicants fill out a duplicate, absolutely duplicate town application for the state application. So in order to streamline this process, we're thinking that if they fill out a state application and show us that, then that will be deemed to have fulfilled the requirements to fill out a local application as well.
And as a bar owner myself that has had to go through that process, it just didn't make sense. So I'm glad to see that that's being eliminated, especially having to turn in the servers, permits, and all that stuff to the town, which has absolutely no use or jurisdiction over the servers. Just didn't make sense. So I'm glad to see that we're doing away with that and just basically, are we just basically collecting the fee then? Okay.
Sorry, Mayor, council members, the approval will just be on the state's form now. And like you said, it was the exact same information.
Okay.
So the governing body will give their approval on that form. And then also, the reason this is on the agenda is because Councilmember Peralta has requested that this be reviewed on a yearly basis.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I just feel that this is an authority that the council is giving to the mayor to approve, basically picnic licenses, so long as they meet a certain criteria. And I just think it's important that the public know that we've given you that authority, and it makes it just a very transparent board of government.
Just as a matter, just to make sure I comply with your wishes here, would you also like to see the list of previously approved, or I mean anything more than just the resolution just coming back up? All right.
I believe that in an effort to keep the council informed anytime that I approve one, I believe that just an FYI should go out. Just
Okay.
because right now, just for the listening audience, anything under 500 falls under the discretion of the mayor and administration.
That's
Anything over 500 in attendees has to come to formal council approval. But I think that it behooves us to let the council know exactly what's going on.
We can do that, and the procedure is still the same. When we get the application and have it approved, we'll send it to the convention center staff, if it's here at the convention center, which that won't be happening much anymore. And then also, we'll send it to the police department for their information. So along with that, I'll also send it to the mayor and council.
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Next, we will go to consideration and possible approval of a plan for reorganizing the Planning and Zoning and Buildings Department to provide better services and more effectively meet the town's development needs. Oscar. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, while the file is brought up on the screen there, I'll give you a quick introduction. What you have here then is our vision or staff's vision of what's been going on at the planning department and what we would recommend as the path for moving forward. I figured that with now, 6 weeks in the job, Martha has now, our new plan director, has now seen enough of how we operate, what's there, to weigh in on her recommendations for how to proceed, how to go forward. And so what you have here is that presentation. At the end, we have a couple of options that we'd like to just put on the table for you, and then some basic recommendations for how to go forward. Without any more, I'll turn it over to Martha.
So this is a plan for reorganizing the department. The old paradigm was basically looking at zoning with the suburbia and having the city be separate. So you had your uses being separated from one another rather than them being mixed. I find from living here that Taos has a lot of uses right next to one another, and there's not that segregation of uses, but yet that seems to be how the zoning department was set up.
So, in other words, we think it's okay that they're mixed, but the presumption was at that time that they should not be, and that anyway, we were set up to kind of, in essence, provide you a Dallas sometime in the future.
So we had, FTEs that had only one thing that they did, and it was, that person only did it. There was very little cross-training. Today, we have annexed quite a bit of land. We have 327 parcels that we actually need to rezone. It's a danger for the people who have been annexed in not to be rezoned. We have an obligation underneath the statute. At the same time, the town population really hasn't grown. The population of the county has. The town has remained rather dense with these mixed uses, and the county has tended to sprawl and be more like that suburban type of development. In addition, we've had our economy. Our economy has declined somewhat. You can see that for Taos in particular, the gross receipts taxes and the activity is way down. So we need to look at how we can have a department that processes permits effectively, efficiently, and at the same time meets the community's needs by being customer service oriented. Part of the rezoning, we need to be looking at the comp plan and have master planning. We need to look at economic development. Code enforcement. Code enforcement is both building and permitting, as well as code and nuisance abatement. Planning and zoning review. Administrative support for all this happening. Online and self-service customer service, and information technology. All of these tie together. None of them can happen without the others, without like different people working across their little categories that they were in earlier, and technology and administration tie them all together. So for a new department structure, I'm looking at having like a director, and right now we already have our administrative staff and a person at the counter who's trying to issue permits. We have code and building through agreement with the county. We have planning and zoning, which is myself. We have economic development that's kind of been spread out among a couple different departments, and it's coming back to this department. And then we have our technological support. We have GIS, which is coming out of the Public Works Department. And we apparently just received this summer, there was software purchase, Llama, where the data was converted, but we haven't been taking advantage of that. That was about the time that we lost a lot of staff. And then we have our records, and coming in brand new, I can't find very many things. Things are all over the place. There's no organization. And then there's this need to look forward and to provide self-service and to categorize permits into different categories so that we look at permits that are of a similar nature. Maybe some of these can be over the counter, or people can actually apply and basically permit themselves, which is another piece of the software. The current software that we have would allow self-service if we bought another module.
But another component of self-service is also allowing a bigger part of the community out there to take part in that, such that, for example, a certain level of building permits could be, contractors could get some of those permits to, within a certain cost or a certain level of complexity. If they could get them maybe at their favorite contractor's desk, at a local supplier. Potentially also that some of the inspection could also be done by, depending on certain what it was. If we prescribed it well and supervised it well, then it could be done by more people than just the immediate town staff. And if we could go back just to the previous, one of the things we also want the council to weigh in on here is the mode by which we are providing building inspection. As you know, currently that's happening through a memorandum of understanding with the county. The county has expressed some dissatisfaction with how that is working right now. Currently, we just reimburse them based on hours, things like that, and we collect the building permits. They've expressed interest in changing that, or at least they don't want to continue with the current relation that we have. I did have a little bit of a conversation with the county manager and asked him if he would consider a different mode where we would hire an inspector and still that inspector would be supervised by the chief building official. As you know, there's state law has changed that requires that all inspection be supervised by the chief building official. He said he needed to poll the policymakers to see where he stood with that. At this point, he couldn't give me any kind of a certainty.
Does that mean a rolling quorum?
I'm certain he did not mean that. But nonetheless, at that time, he couldn't tell me if he himself would recommend it or how his policy makers felt about that. So at the same time, we have been pursuing the same with Angel Fire. And I had a conversation with my counterpart in Angel Fire. And he said that they're totally open to that. What they would want, at least the structure that they would be interested in pursuing, would be one where we have a memorandum of understanding with the village of Angel Fire for them to, for us to borrow or make use of, if you will, of their chief building official.
Speaking of their chief building official,
yes, sir. He, in fact, yes, the chief building official
Welcome.
from Angel Fire is here. Yes, sir. I invited him to listen to the presentation, so he would know exactly how you guys are thinking. And so the way it would work is that we would have a memorandum of understanding with Angel Fire and then a separate agreement with the individual, Mr. Rosales. That would cost us some $23,000 a year. The idea is that we would hire a much junior inspector who's licensed to do inspections, and then would be then operating under the supervision of the chief building official over there. So those are the two directions at this point that we have. We had preliminary conversations, or quite a bit of a conversation with Los Alamos and Santa Fe as well. But those are talks are going to have to continue for some time. And we envision at some point some sort of consortium agreement or memorandum of understanding with them via some consortium. But at this point, to be much more practical and to have something on the ground, those are the two directions that we are pursuing. Clearly, if we work with the county, it would just be a lot more convenient, et cetera. But at this point, they can't commit. At least the indication I got from the county manager is that they would take it to the county in the next a few weeks and discuss it and see how they felt about it. But that at this point that they were having some misgivings with the current arrangement that's there right now. What they would want to do is that they would want to enter either into arrangement whereby they collect all of the building permit revenue, and instead of us paying them on an hourly basis. But this other arrangement, the county manager wasn't sure, where that would go. So anyway, I'd like to hear what you think about either one of those paths. As I said, one of them is clearly an option. The other one, we still have to hear back from the county how they feel about it.
And the option of working with Angel Fire and Taos is immediate, but I've also heard interest, and I went and talked to Los Alamos and Santa Fe, and they're interested in a more umbrella, like a higher level MOU, just so that it's in place. So if we ever needed services, any one of those municipalities, the other municipalities would be there to help out.
I believe that, thank you. I think that it's good to always explore those as in case. You never know. Policymakers change and policy direction may change, and we don't want to be left holding the bag, if you will. I spoke with CID. I'm thinking Holland Gaming, CID, and with Fermin up there, and it's unfortunate that we couldn't bring Mauro back under, explore those because of the grandfather clauses on the law that changed on how building officials are certified, and those that are currently offering and doing inspections, and those are grandfathered in. But if they leave that position, then it doesn't transfer, even if it's just 19 miles away to a neighboring municipality. I believe that there is going to be some changes into the law. So I think whatever we do, we have to look at, because I think even CID recognizes that maybe they didn't catch all the loopholes that this is creating. What it's doing is it's promoting municipalities having to look elsewhere for those certifications, and when we have the talent right in our backyard, and what we're going to have to do if we want to get somebody to do these inspections that can be independent, we would have to send them to a training, and I think the training, according to Fermin, is about a week or 2 week period. But it's an intensive course, I understand, and that may be an option that we have to look at as well. Weigh all the options. Does it behoove us to have a full-time code enforcement that's certified, that we can get them to that path, that can do different tasks and assist our planning department to do different plan review? Because once they get certified, according to Fermin, that you can also do plan review and different things through that program. And he was very confident that an individual such as, which he spoke very, very highly of, Mauro Rosales, by the way, that he had no doubt in his mind that he could be successful through that program. So I think exploring those opportunities, still we should, consider doing that, especially if we could get somebody that's as qualified as an individual such as Mauro Rosales, that, can provide these services and do other tasks as well. So,
Mr. Mayor,
members.
Also with regards to that, Martha, I want to say thank you, because the sentiment through the building community, as you know, I'm associated with pretty intimately, has been one of great reception. They think very highly of you. They value your knowledge. But the one thing that they have relayed to me with regards to caution is for us not to burn you out. So I want to make sure that we have the proper channels in place too, because it behooves us to have the right individuals in the right places, to bring all the right elements back to what's here. I don't want to lose that, because we see building on an uptick. I see building on an uptick, and maybe within the town's reflections of GRTs we don't see it, but I think it's we're gonna crawl before we walk again, and it is slowly coming back. But at the same point, I think we're in a perfect position right now to evaluate the structures of, like you mentioned, what we had before. And, you know, like I said, resentment through the building community is one of great positive, and it's something that we've been looking for a while. So I appreciate that, and I want to thank you for that. But at the same point, I want to make sure that we have all the help that you need also.
In addition to the building, there is really a need for having another planner. There needs to be somebody who can be on the counter and actually be giving people advice. We have a lot of walk-ins where people are doing what-ifs, or I have this question, what does the code require? How many hearings? You know, right now it's just me. I get an awful lot of interruptions. I'm so new that I don't know the code real well. And then when the files are a mess and there's really nobody to get them organized, it's hard to know if something's under a PUD, so it's a plan unit development, whether or not special conditions apply. When people come in and they want to, you know, they want to see an old building permit, we're having a hard time finding it as far as a records request. You know, the applications all need to be updated. They're all 1999. I need to update all those. There's been code changes since then. We need to be providing customers with good information. We need to update our website, good information out there, good telephone numbers out there. There's a lot to do. And then with the rezonings coming in with the annexation, you know, there needs to be some master planning. We're talking about rezoning the airport, but we need a master plan before we can do that. So I'm begging you guys to also look at hiring another planner. It's very hard to manage and then be on the counter. You know, the staff that I have hasn't been there for very long. They're also learning. They've only been there, 8 months?
Yeah. So everybody there is new.
And we've already found some ways to streamline. Like she does the craft fair, so she was issuing separate permits for each booth. And so we've agreed that now she just puts all the vendors on one permit, and then each vendor can have that with it highlighted, or else the person chairing the event can have the whole list and keep track of all the vendors. So we're looking at ways to streamline. We're looking at code changes, possibly like with rezonings, rather than having 2 preliminary hearings, only having 1, and making the internal review committee, staff committee, which is a public meeting right now as the hearing, before we go to in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then before we go to council. I mean, we have to look at every single way that we can, you know, make ourselves more efficient. But even still, I still see that there's really right now an urgent need for a planner. I mean, and we'll implement the software. We'll get the records in order, but still.
So what the whole idea was here to show you how we want to proceed, so that we can go forward. For example, what you don't see now is that old structure that there's a code enforcer and then a building inspector separate. You know, we're thinking that function would be done at the same time. You know, would be done at the same time. There's no short-term planner and then there's a long-term planner. You know, there's a planner, and also there's going to be a big effort at self-service so that people. So a lot of the what ifs, for example, that conversation that people can do kind of on their own and say, okay, and that means, you know, I could go this way, et cetera. If we can put a lot of stuff online, we're hoping that a bunch of that traffic will also be self-service that way.
And then by training our people and having them cross-trained, more than one person can answer questions. So when somebody's gone, it's not like the customer has to come back.
Councilmember Peralta? Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think that we all feel that you do need more staff. And you need another planner in that department. There's no question about that. And we would like to see that on board as soon as possible. But I have a question for you, and that is concerning the building inspector, code enforcer, that sort of thing. And what is the recommendation that you would like to see? Would you like to see us put in a junior building inspector and code enforcer now and work that person under a JPA with county or Angel Fire or Santa Fe or whoever? Is that what you're recommending that we go with now?
Yes,
and
sir.
do we have any ideas of a person to fill that role, or are we ready to rock and roll and get that out for advertisement? Just some questions.
Yes, sir. Unless you direct otherwise, that's how we would like to proceed, and put an advertisement out for that tomorrow. Parallel, then locking in an agreement with either Angel Fire or the county, and then proceeding, and then having that person on board. Hopefully, will be a person who can do a lot more of these things, and then we can invest in over the long term.
In the same thing with another planner, are we planning to move that forward quickly?
Well, in that case, it's a matter of resources. Part of how, at this point, we're programming that planner to come on board later this year, depending on how much we get in resources. At this point, we're using some of those resources to pay for the assistant town manager, and that's how we've been able to pay for it. Should we, later on be able to project or certify to you that there's more revenue, that person will be brought on sooner rather than later. But at this point, the building inspector would be the main one, and then and the MOU, I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this question. Let's go back to the slide before this one. In that three-ring circus, the way I see it constructed, in what you were talking about a little bit, in that by cross-training and abilities, you could get, let's say, the building inspector or code enforcement person when they're in the office to assist you in giving out information, at least, and cross-train them that way. Is that not correct, that this was the way that this would work?
Yes.
That everybody wouldn't be segregated to a specific job, but would be there to make the whole team work together as one?
Yes. We need flexible people and people that are willing to step up and be a member of the team.
Okay. Well, I agree with that, and that's why I asked the question.
So the idea, we might get a junior inspector, say, depending on the quality, the person that we get, we could be a junior inspector in terms of their duties for inspection, but they might also be someone who can read plans and who can provide some assistance with the planning and zoning effort.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question, Martha. In an ideal situation, I guess, as mayor, I guess I have a concern that we would hire a junior person. I would like to get to the point where we're independent, where we can be that key person or planning department that other municipalities can say, hey, we're going to sign an MOU with Taos because they have a certified building official. Would you prefer to have that certified building official or an individual that is capable of doing that and diversifying into doing other things in the planning department, and then perhaps send them to get trained or certified?
Yes, but the problem is this umbrella. So how do we bring in a certified building official right now? But the long-term plan would be to bring in an inspector and train them, like send them to Colorado for the classes and get the hours in. It's my understanding in 2 weeks you can pretty much take a class and then test and get to be the building official. But you have to have the CID building inspection test passed, and you have then a year to go get the certification with ICC. The problem is how the legislation is written currently.
Mr. Mayor, with regards to that, wouldn't that be, I guess, a prime scenario for somebody like Motto, where he carries the certifications but he lacks the CBO? He's under the grandfather, and at some time within the next 5 years, he's going to have to get that certification anyway.
Yes, that's
so,
true.
That puts us that much closer, as opposed to having to go out and seek a junior inspector, put him through every single training through the state, and then send him to Colorado to get the certification. It's with an individual like Motto, we lack one step in completing the process.
Yeah, except that we would, in the interim, have to be under a CBO of some kind.
So,
and at least
isn't that where we would talk with regards to where you're saying Santa Fe and Los Alamos under the full umbrella, or wanting to be at that higher level? Could we do that within the interim and say this happens extremely quick?
I did talk to Los Alamos because Los Alamos would like to have some building inspection help. They're having a lot of commercial development up there currently, and so they do want inspection help. But even though they're within 100 miles, which is what is limited as far as this umbrella, when I talked to the building official up there, he said, you know, Martha, that's just too far away for me to be overseeing an inspector. You know, we'd love to do it if we were closer. But they're very, very interested in having more of an overall umbrella so that when they need an inspector, they can call on somebody. And if we have the resources, we can provide it. And the same with Santa Fe. I mean, when we had the Cerro Grande fire, I used to work for Los Alamos. We actually called on the state of New Mexico and on Bernalillo to help us because we had so many units that were going in and we needed so much plan review and building inspection. So it's nice to have that in place before something happens.
Martha, that's where I guess I would say with regards to the very short term. I'm talking like a month, 2 months, before having somebody in place with regards to an actual CBO here within the town of Taos.
Yeah, there's not very many certified building officials right now in the state of New Mexico. So it's going to be hard to find someone who can devote the time necessary. If we have an MOU with Angel Fire, it's my understanding that we can only have that individual like one day a week.
Councilmember, are you done, Councilmember Peralta?
I guess right along the lines that Councilmember Gonzalez is talking about, and I'm just thinking about it. Since we have an understanding or an agreement, I guess is a better term for it, with the county to provide building inspection, could we not, as a condition of hire, have Mauro go to and get his certification and then bring him on board as a full-time person if that's his desire to work for us full-time? Or I don't know what it is, but I'm just saying, couldn't we do that and then we have met the requirements? We don't have to worry about, you know, that his grandfathering doesn't transfer, but you get him certified?
Right. I mean, because he's going to have to be there anyway. He's got a 5-year time period to be certified in any case. Of course, there would have to be that investment by Angel Fire to, you know, send him to take those classes and to...
Well, what about the investment from us?
No, the investment from us is that we would send him to school. He would be under the condition that he certifies himself. He doesn't certify and...
You mean that we would extend an offer under the condition that he would get that certification? Well, yeah, it'd be easier for us to say, but you're asking the individual then to quit a job on the bet that he will get the certifications. And of course, once he's quit,
I'm just saying,
then it's kind of no turning back.
Yeah. I guess there could be maybe even an arrangement with Angel Fire to where they would allow him to go, get his certification, and then he can be the umbrella, and they pay for that. Or because I have no idea what the arrangement with Angel Fire would be as far as even them being our certified building person over a junior one here and what they would require. So,
well,
if he was to stay there.
At this point, what they're saying is, look, we're okay with it. He is a salaried person. We would just depend on him to, you know, do all the work that he needs to do here, and for him to either email or telephone or be in person with your junior inspector, you know, back in Taos. If that were the arrangement, they're totally okay with that. What they were not okay with was that he would also be our inspector here, and in other words, that we would share one inspector. On that, when we started down this road back in June, I called the town administrator about that, and he said no. He said that was the feeling also from the council as well as the local construction contractors, et cetera, that they wanted to make sure that their inspector was dedicated 100% of the time to them for the time that was there. Now, they work 4 days, 10-hour days, and so as a result, their staff is available 1 day of the week, and so that's kind of the time that we had available. Now, the scenario you're describing, though, Councilman Gonzalez, is one where they would invest in him to get certified with the plan that then they would lose him and bring him here. They don't want that at all.
Well, and
they're hoping that we do not recruit him away from them. That's what they're hoping.
Oscar, that's what I'm saying, though, is that with regards, we're not asking them to foot the bill for the training. You know, in the remarks the mayor said with regards to Fermin at the state, who has every confidence that Mauro would pass that exam, I guess the ultimate question would lie in Mauro, whether or not he'd be willing to do that. But
He'd quit his job over there on the bet that he would pass the test here.
And in all scenarios, it's not a bet, because at some point he's going to have to take the test irregardless.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a bet for 5 years, or is it a bet tomorrow?
Well, I would say that we'd want to shorten that window, because we want to be able to be independent to justify such a salary, plus also I think that there's other things that we'd want to utilize his expertise in the planning department.
Yes.
So in the perfect, I know that we're talking of different positions. I know that you're overwhelmed. You're saying that. What positions would you like to see created in the planning department? I know that we had 4 or 5 that have been through attrition, people leaving, have not been filled. And are these the positions that you would like to see, the ones that are on the screen now? And are the ones the same color? Are those the same person?
No, I highlighted in green the code, building and planning, zoning, because that's where our real needs are. Economic development, have only been here for 6 months. 6 weeks, not 6 months. So I'm having a hard time understanding what all is going on with economic development, what our relationship is with the County of Taos, and how those interrelate. It seems like a lot of the economic development is occurring with the county, but I'm not sure where it's at. Planners and doing economic development, you can often find a person that can do both. I mean, my background's more in economic development than planning, to be honest. So, if I had my way, yes, I'd love to have three positions, but I also need to have that GIS support. So I am pulling on IT and on the Public Works Department somewhat, because our GIS person is in Public Works, and a GIS database is invaluable to a planner, because you can see what the zoning is, you can keep track of variances, you can map things, you can show people how many variances have occurred in one neighborhood, whether or not the current zoning's working. You can have them create long, master plan maps, things to communicate with the public with. So, while I might not have an FTE, I'd love to have part of an FTE. The other area that I'm realizing that I'm really missing is like having an engineer on staff. When we get civil, there's nobody that has civil engineer on staff, and there is a need for that. So we need to have a contract or something for those services. So when we start looking at FTEs, there's also money needed for software maintenance, and then a couple technical people that wouldn't necessarily be full-time if I had whatever I wanted.
Sure. And I think that that's why we went through this engineering RFP, so that we can have engineer consultants review as needed and utilize our services. And I know that, Oscar, we had, like, for instance, French get certified to do the building inspections, but I mean, French is probably one of the most taxed department heads that we have already. So certainly, I think in an emergency basis we can do that, but I certainly wouldn't want to see him off of his regular duties to perform that, because we are not able to hire someone. But I know that we went through a process, a hiring process on the building official, and I believe there was only one applicant, which was Mr. Rosales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this was the only snag that we had, was at the state, and him losing that grandfather status, and what were we going to do. And so I would encourage the council to direct staff to work with the options that are available, and talk to Mr. Rosales, since he was the only applicant, and what are the options as far as schooling,
I think this council, what I'm hearing is that they're, we're interested in perhaps, getting someone trained and certified so that they could come back and be that point person. Also, utilizing this person based on his expertise for plan review, code enforcement, and such. Hopefully we get to the point where it's a good problem to need yet another inspector, but we also have those in-house with certain staff members.
Julie Scanzi and French, and maybe others. I mean,
that can relieve some of that. So I think right now, while there's not an abundance of building permits, as needed, it's good to have diversification within our staffs that can provide that service in the event that this point person is doing other tasks and stuff. So I would like to see that for staff to pursue that and see what the opportunities are with Mr. Rosales. And I think this is an opportunity that we have to build on our planning department to get a qualified person and yet send them to get the overall qualification. Keep in mind that the state passed this because it's a crucial inspection process, and it's inspections, and the concern of the state, I sit on the municipal league board, was that anybody was just doing inspections. They wanted to make sure that they were doing inspection and they were qualified to do those inspections. So they made this process, and it was a lengthy process that they, in getting this legislation introduced, and I think they realized they didn't catch all the loopholes that are, and right now, for instance, if this individual gets his grandfathered in now, leaves that municipality, now they're going to have to hire someone or enter into an MOU. And if they want to hire someone, chances are finding someone in the state that is certified, even though there's many that are qualified, finding that one that's certified you're going to have to look out of state. So I think it had some repercussions that they didn't foresee, and I think we may see some legislation that's changed on that, or at least clarify some of the gray area that it has there. So
even CID themselves haven't completed, their own full process, completely defining what a CBO is. I mean, in all everything it takes to be a CBO.
And when I met with Fermin, the interim director, right now, he's the interim director at this point, I believe. But he's going through surgery, so I think they're still. And I believe Catherine, I believe was her name. She was the director. She resigned for whatever reason. I'm not sure what it is, but I talked to one of the executive assistants there, and they're not happy with this legislation and the chaos that it's creating. So I think that we need to be creative on how we're going to work with this, and there may be some. They were going to look into that legally. I think they requested from our legal staff to submit a letter as to what the opinion of that interpretation of that statute was, and they may have some discretion to say, look, this makes sense, and if it doesn't make sense well, of course, they wouldn't override the statute, but they would at least carry that flag and say, hey, we need to change this provision on there. So I would encourage the council to allow staff to look at the options and bring some recommendations back. Councilmember Peralta.
Any changes to the legislation for this coming session would have to be from the governor's office because it doesn't have anything to do with finance or money. So it can't come from municipal league or anybody else. It has to come down from the governor's office as a change to that particular statute. So the department itself is going to have to scream and holler to the governor to make a change this year.
And on that,
and so I'm just saying that I think that we shouldn't look at that as our solution. We should look at what we have in place and then work around that. If the other comes to be, thank you, but I think if we bank on that, we're going to be a long ways down this road without a solution to our problem.
Indeed, and we can't wait for that. So the way we want to proceed at this point, unless you direct otherwise, is with whomever we can get an MOU fastest. We'd like to proceed in that direction, and then hire a local inspector who we could potentially, train up or get to the point where we could be as independent as soon as possible. And that's how we would like to proceed at this point, given the facts that given just the cards that we've been dealt at this point.
Mr. Mayor.
Sure. And before we get there, yeah, you're right, Councilmember Peralta. This will have to, and that's the reason why I'm doing a parallel approach on this. And I've also spoke with the chief of staff of the governor, and he's very well aware of this issue, that this needs to be changed, and he's not happy with it. So you're right. We need to.
Everybody's complaining about it.
We can't wait for the legislature or the governor to change that or propose that amendment. We need to look at what are our alternatives here at the local level. So.
Right away, so we can get some help right away.
Right.
Well, normally I don't butt in on other departments' stuff because it doesn't matter to me. I just put up with whatever happens. In this instance, we have on the way to our office, as soon as the third boundary commissioner signs the document, we're going to have 327 zonings to do. My office is charged, my paralegal is charged with assisting the planning department with doing that. So I have an interest in the planning department. Besides, it's been stuck on my shoe like gum since I've been here. So if it helps, in order to fully get a range of options, if we knew how much money we had to spend, I would be happy to toss in the potential assistant town attorney into that pot of dollars, whatever it is, and work with Oscar and work with the planning department to try and figure out something going ahead that works. Having pinch hit in the planning department very briefly on day-to-day stuff, we are not organized enough to handle 27 zonings, let alone 327 zonings. So it may be that the bigger need for the town at this point is not an assistant attorney. It may be some different combination. Frankly, if I got an assistant attorney, I would have to give them to the planning department anyway to do the rezonings. So I would offer that to the extent that it helps, but it would be good if we knew what the budget was and then try and figure out what we can afford and then figure out how to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Councilmember Silva, and then we'll get to Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the end of the day, it's service that we need to provide, and that's the bottom line. I guess the silver lining is that there's not a whole lot going on as far as building goes right now, so it's a good time to be restructuring. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to say, it's Martha, correct?
Yes.
Yes. I just want to say that I think that starting from scratch within your department, and I know you must have a handful right now, but I want to just, coming from my viewpoint, is that we want to make sure to give you all the tools that you need in order to start out being successful. And so, with that, just bring some recommendations, and we'll try to get the best people for the job. I think that at the end of the day, I would like to see a fully staffed planning department, something that we can utilize and share then with other communities. So I'd like to bring all that in-house. Okay. That's all I have.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Mr. Mayor, I think with regards, Oscar, to I'm okay with the MOU in the very, very short term. I think just in the fact that we had Mr. Rosales as a candidate and a qualified candidate at that, I would like to see the direction be that we pursue that in negotiation with him, whether or not he's willing to take that on. I hope Brian didn't scare him away with his last comment, but I do think that above and beyond all, even with regards to what I hear within the building community, is that end of the day, this is a very small community, and when there was rumblings of Motto had even been considered as a candidate, there were high fives going around, literally, and I think it's because the wealth of the knowledge that he brings, in the sense that it's not, a step A through Z, it's a step A through B. And, for me, as an elected official who also interacts with these individuals on a daily basis, there's a lot of calls I get with regards to planning that, in turn, I end up having to go to Martha when, it could have been solved subsequently with just one phone call as opposed to 3. And I think at the same time, to have an elected involved into a building issue, I start walking a tightrope with regards to projects that I'm involved in and now projects that I'm being asked to oversee what coding could be on. So I would like to see it implemented as soon as possible. And just being the way it is that this community is too dang small. And that the interactions that I come across on a daily basis, put me in tight positions, especially with regards to should something come to council. I don't want my perception to be convoluted because we didn't have somebody in place who could answer the questions beyond the answers that I was giving them. So to not burden Martha also, I think it behooves us to move in that direction. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Oscar, I think at the end of the day, you're the manager. You're tasked to
Yes,
fill
sir.
in, and I think the council wants to see these positions filled. I think you need to. I think the council wants a department that stands on its own.
Got it.
And we need to pursue those options that lend itself to do that.
Got it. As soon as possible. Yes, sir.
And sooner than later, yeah, because I just don't want to be in the issue of MOUs and then they cancel that and then where do we go, and then you have contractors calling us, well, what's going on with the planning department? We want to have an efficient, fast, and effective planning department, and I don't see any reason why we have to substitute the town assistant attorney with all the savings that we've done in the planning department with the vacant positions there. So I think that we need to really work with the budget, work with finance to make sure that we find that fill those positions.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Thank you, Martha. Was that the...
Well, just to send you off in a proper perspective of what we're facing here, the next slide you'll see very graphically the challenge. What you have right there.
There's actually three.
Okay.
This is a list of all the processes or permits that we now issue out of planning. So there's 33. And then what's in the table here is the reviews that are required. So out of those reviews, I think 9 of them require that. No, there's four reviews that require that the planning and zoning review it twice before it goes to council.
So if it looks complicated, it's because it is. And that's what they're having to contend with over there. That's why so many questions. That's why, a lot of our resources go to just figuring out some very basic things. So people ask questions because we have a very complicated process here in terms of the many different kind of permits, who can give those permits, under what conditions, and of course each one of those conditions vary depending on who comes in and what they're asking for.
Oscar, real quick, with regards to the Historic Overlay Commission or the Historic Preservation Commission, and there's, I think, some inefficiencies within that that need to be seriously looked at. And, I mean, that's coming, again, from what I hear.
Yes, sir.
And then, also, one thing that I've been asked more and more and more repeatedly, almost on a daily basis now, is the SMART code. When are we going to, either revamp it or do away with it? Because it's a huge burden with regards to building cost efficient, especially in today's economy.
Hers.
I think with that SMART code, I think we went down that road just to look at the options. The applicability is completely, it doesn't lend itself to Taos. So I think this council needs to get something in the future on how we're going to do our planning. But I just don't feel that the SMART code, the applicability, I don't think we'd ever get there to fully implementing the SMART code. It was a good exercise that we went through, but I don't think it's going to work out. Then the HERS rating that Councilmember Silva had brought that up to me, and I think that was something we need to really revisit because of how it makes the builder comply with something that makes it cost prohibitive to build, and the affordability starts going out the door.
And
on top of that, we don't have
there's
people to
no inspectors to do reviews in the area, so it's very burdensome for the contractors.
Perhaps what we could do is at the next council meeting, bring it to you to suspend it in the meantime while we study it and while we figure out what we have to do right now with that.
I believe that's a pressing issue we need to bring.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oscar.
Okay, next we will go to item F. And I'd also like to thank Mauro for attending the meeting as well. Thank you. Look forward to the continued dialogue with you to see what we can come up with. All right. Consideration of possible approval to accept grant agreement with the State of New Mexico Department of Transportation in the amount of $160,000 to plan, design, and construct Phase 3 improvements to Estes Road under Department of Finance appropriation of New Mexico Department of Transportation control number.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, what this is the appropriation we got from the state legislature. This was our ICIP funding for last year. And this money doesn't really go to us. It goes in our name to the Department of Transportation for our match for a signal light and improvements at the intersection of Estes and Paseo del Sur. We recommend approval.
Okay.
So move.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh. Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll, sir.
Can you explain exactly what improvements are going to be done there?
No.
At that intersection? Since that's the street I live on?
What improvements?
Yes.
French, can we, just for the listening audience, can we let them know what, we could do that real briefly, please?
And it's not just that intersection all the way up Estes Road.
I live in the part that the dirt starts, and is that going to be?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All the way up to the
Salazar Road.
French?
Wonderful. I'm all for it.
You live on the east side, right?
I live on.
West.
Yes.
You guys are talking about it going westbound.
Yes.
Okay,
West.
well, I was wondering, are you guys going to put a light there?
There's
Yes.
going to be a signalized light on where Rio Grande Ace and Guadalajara Grill is at.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's just wonderful.
That's a long-term
So-
plan on that.
So,
Just
so
a real brief, where does it start? Where does it end?
all of the improvements, French. I mean, everything that's going on over there, the light, the street, everything. So they get the idea. It's a lot going on.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Basically, it's just that it's the construction of a signalized intersection that'll go 300 feet north and southbound to assume the improvements for the turning lanes and the holding lanes. And of course, it'll go, I believe it's 200 feet to the east and 300 feet to the west on the newly constructed Estes Road intersection. It'll be fully ADA compliant. It'll have the Opticom lights for emergency services, and it will have the street lighting on top of the masts as well. So in a nutshell, that's basically what it is.
Okay. And this is a direct result of the town's commitment to improving those side streets, and now they found the justification, the state, to provide this signalized intersection. So,
Oh, that's wonderful. It's pretty dangerous right there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, French. Okay. Next, we will go to item G, consideration of possible approval of resolution 1350 adopting capital improvements plan for fiscal years 2015, 2019 through 2019 that includes prioritized list of unfunded or partially funded capital improvement needs through the state's infrastructure capital improvements program.
Mr. Mayor, what you have in your backup is the list of new requests for funding through the state's ICIP. If you envision, we have a capital improvements program. It's a 5-year capital improvements program. In that capital improvements program, there are projects that we are funding through cash, some through utility revenues, some through grants, et cetera. There's also a list of projects that are part of the ICIP, projects that we hope to get funded through this very special legislative approval. For example, the previous project. And so the state requires that we go through this round every year, that we relook at our list, add new things to our list, prioritize them based on a criteria that they recommend, where something you've said often, Mr. Mayor, that the state emphasizes a lot, that it be primarily infrastructure, public safety. And so what the staff did over the last couple of months is go through that process. And so what you have there is our recommended list of priorities based on the criteria that the state uses. And so by adopting this, then you amend the capital improvements program with this list of projects. You'll see all those projects that are there. You'll notice that the highest priority ones are the ones that have public safety. It seems that the fire department did quite well this year based on the projects that they were proposing. A lot of small projects. And also in there are other more substantial projects that are not directly public safety related. You'll see that those projects appear further down the list. There are some projects, I think it's important to note here, there are some projects that are not on the list that staff recommended and that I'm recommending at this point that not be included in ICIP. For example, the renovation of a $5.5 million new library sometime down the future. Based on the conversation we had this year when we went over our capital improvement program, I cut that program out, or that project out. There's a couple of other projects that we thought that also could be funded just with cash and did not need to be taking space up in this plan. So anyway, with that, you have staff's recommendations for our next year's ICIP, so that when the legislature considers appropriations, special appropriations to local governments, or even when the departments themselves are considering grants, grant applications that we submit to them, that they can go through this. What they do is they go to this ICIP and say, well, is that in your priority? And so that's why those projects are there.
Mr. Mayor, Oscar, could we give the Phil Lovato Senior Center capital improvements project to the county? They asked for the building.
Yes, sir. And in fact, there's other capital dollars that are associated with that. I'd be glad to transfer that. Well, maybe, I don't know, keep the capital projects here, give them the building, and we can give them this place if we get some extra money for them.
We'll find some other place to use it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And there's lots of places to use it.
Is there a reason to keep it on our ICIP if we're not going to have the?
Well, we've got to keep it there until we decide to get rid of it.
Yeah, somebody, in order for this, so for example, if they should apply for grant funding somewhere, they're going to be asked, well, where is that in your ICIP? And if it doesn't appear there, or if it doesn't appear ours, then it'll be hard to say it's a local community priority. Okay. So it doesn't hurt, Mr. Mayor, it doesn't hurt.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments? If not, what's the pleasure of the council?
Move for approval, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion
Second,
carries.
Mayor, before we approve it.
I thought I had heard a second. Okay, motion and a second. All right, next we'll go to item, I'm getting ahead of myself here. We'll go to item H, presentation by the monthly financial report for the period ending August 31st. Marietta, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, good evening, council members, town manager, and youth council member. You have the report in front of you. It is for August. We're already through September, but through August on our gross receipts tax, we were up 13.9%. That equates to about $122,000 more from last year to this year. And pretty much Mumford & Sons concert had a lot to do with it. That's in the past. We've already gotten September's report. You got that this morning. We're up again at 5% for the month. And just remember, this is the distribution, and the activity is July right now for September. So year to date, we're up about 6.86%. If you see on the revenues on the second page, even though we are up on gross receipts tax, our library fees are obviously down projected. We're only going to probably receive $35,000 compared to the $120,000 that we anticipated, and we are working with library director to look at some cost savings that they can do, or some kind of plan for the future. We also have some revenues from the convention center that we will be posting for the first quarter. It's not on this report, but that's another revenue source, about $124,000 that could or could not be brought in. At least half of that amount, $60-some thousand, if we do nothing with the convention center. But I think we have something on the next meeting or coming up soon with UNM. So, that might have offset a little bit that we may not receive that whole $124,000. I think next report we'll have 3 months under our belt. I can come back with, some better projections on those bigger items that are going to be short, and obviously the gross receipts tax, that we may look at that, but the net may not be the full big amount of the gross receipts depending on the other revenue sources. I think in expenditures right now we're pretty much running on track. We didn't have our, you can see in the report, our self-insurance fund payment is quite big. That will be expensed now in September's report when you see it. So that's why some of those operating budgets looked a lot less than last year. Other than that, capital projects, we continue to do design on Camino de Merced. We did some construction, actual physical construction on Old Talpa Canyon Road. The numbers don't reflect that. That'll probably be more in September and October when we receive that first pay application. I know that hasn't come in through yet. Other than that, on general fund, we did do the budget adjustment for those positions in planning and funded the assistant town attorney position with that budget adjustment that you did approve. So that position is available starting tomorrow to advertise for legal. We do have 2 positions that we did budget for planning, so I don't know if we're going to probably revisit those 2. So there's actually 2 vacant after we did that whole adjustment. So I'll get back with Oscar and Martha on that one. Other than that, special revenues pretty much running their course, and I stand for any questions.
Councilman Peralta?
Yeah. Thank you, Marietta, for the report, and it's nice to see that GRT is continuing. A couple of questions for me, though. The increase that we had in May, this is June, or this is May?
This is August distribution, June's.
Okay. In May, didn't we have a 3.5% or a 5% increase?
In May, we had a 1.35% increase. And when you talk May, we have
I'm talking about 1 month back from August.
1 month back from August. So in July, we had a 1.35% increase.
Okay.
So.
And getting the GRT report that I got today indicates we have over a 5% increase for what would be July.
July, you're right.
Okay. If we split that in half so that it's a 3% increase to look at for June, but we had a 13% increase?
In June we had a 3.32% increase.
No, I'm Munford & Son.
Okay, 13.9.
Okay. So if we took out of the 13.9, 3.5%, let's say, that would be probably the normal growth pattern for that month. That would give us the effect of Munford & Son roughly. So if you could go back and look at that dollar-wise, and you could see that blip that we had there was substantial.
Sure.
And that's the reason I'm saying that, because we just take the normal, if you average out for the year, in calendar year, not fiscal year, we're at about a 3.5%, 4% increase, correct?
Right, correct. I see what you're saying.
So we just applied that to June, and Mumford & Son wasn't here. That's what we would expect to have generated. So for the council's benefit, the blip that we saw in June was about a 10% increase in activity in the community.
About $100,000 in exchange, and what it cost us, you recall, was on about $27,000, not subtracting the $1,000 in revenue that people paid. So for an exchange, for a cost of $26,000, the town received extra revenues about $100,000, not to mention the impact on the economy. So yes, it was a very good investment. Thank you, Mumford.
Yes, I will go back and look, because I understand, based on whatever projections I'm going to go through the rest of the year, that needs to be accounted for in that, because I don't want to over-project that we are. So I understand what you're saying.
Okay. Now, the other question I had, because you were talking about it with the convention center, and I wasn't clear as to what were you indicating that there's $123,000 in revenue?
Yes, how we budgeted this year, we're putting the revenues in general fund because all the expenditures are within general fund's facilities for the utilities and all the costs that are associated with the convention center. So since we've moved all the staff into general fund, we just record those revenues. So I do it actually with a journal entry to put those monies in, but I do it at a quarterly basis, so whatever's in the fund, in the actual cash fund, I'll move those to general fund. So I will have we'll see on the next report. So because everything is budgeted under general fund, all the facilities, there's no longer any kind of operating or personnel within the convention center fund. Just the revenues are recorded.
I believe he was
but
asking.
that was, but wasn't that change in the budget for this fiscal year?
That was changed. The way it was changed is we didn't record it as a transfer. We actually recorded it as reoccurring revenues, because it was always just part of it was more an accounting thing. It was always recorded as a transfer out of the fund. Now we just record it as an actual revenue, so we can see that revenue. Same with the expenditure.
So it's a wash.
It's sort of a wash, but
So
it just does depend on the revenues that we do receive for the whole convention center.
Well, no, but I'm just saying is that the total revenues that we received over the years, that's the reason we're shutting it down, is
Right.
because it isn't even close to probably 10% of the 123,000. So what I'm trying to say is that, even though you're doing it bookkeeping-wise, it really isn't a change in the actual revenues and expenditures of the town.
It will be, because we have the expenditures for all the utilities, so whatever happens, if the utilities are prepaid by whoever wants to facilitate
Okay,
that.
so you're saying that the costs of the convention center are going to be reduced, and therefore the revenues used to pay for that are going to be back in as a surplus to the
Right.
budget. Okay.
So it's probably a wash. It will be a wash. It just depends on what proposals we get for those buildings.
Actually, it's going to be a saving on our part because we won't have to pay those bills.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's actually a revenue stream back into
Yes, sir.
the budget, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Oscar?
No, in a way, there was, just for those of you who were having trouble following the conversation, when Marietta here says an accounting treatment, what more specifically what we're talking about here is, in the past, we sort of counted these expenditures as sort of an extraordinary, non-recurring cost. So like every year we said, oops, there's a cost, and so we put it in, as opposed to putting it straight ahead into our recurring costs. And so therefore we had to cover it with recurring revenues. And so with that reform, we did that with a whole bunch of other things, including 911, for example. That whole, $300,000 cost to us was always a sort of off the balance sheet, if you will. Now that's in there, and now that is a cost to us. And so for that reason, what Marietta is saying, we're really anxious to see what finally UNM does, because if we can get that off our books sooner rather than later, then that's a good thing, clearly. Because otherwise it's a recurring cost in our operating budget that we have to cover with operating revenues, and clearly there's not enough operating revenues coming there.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Marietta.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marietta.
Okay. Next, we'll go to department monthly performance reports. Oscar?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I really don't want to take much time for this right now, other than to tell you every month now you will be getting monthly performance reports. These are not all, this is only a small list of departments that, in my opinion, met what I was hoping to present to you, which is a one-page realistic view of how things are going there. And the only thing I want to tell you is that we're going to be doing that now. That list will be growing month to month, and you'll be getting those every month now. And what I would like, when you get a chance to look at them, is to just provide some feedback, just to make sure that those reports are giving you the information that you want. If you want other information, if the information that's there is not relevant to you, as best we can, based on the input we got from you with our performance review reports that we did with each of the departments, and also the input I've had individually with you. We've put these things together, so that's all I want to say about that. There they are. It shows you police activity, for example. It shows you library activity and all those different sorts of things. And so I would just like any input you have. Hopefully, as time goes on, these things become more central to our conversations about what needs to happen or how things are going in each of the departments. That's our objective.
Okay. Any other comments? Is there any comments from the council? Questions? Thank you, Oscar. Okay, next we'll go to item 10, appointment of Eddie Lucero to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Lucero has agreed to serve on the Town of Taos Planning and Zoning Commission to fill an existing vacancy. Council members, also I would ask for your recommendations on anyone that is interested. Periodically, we do have individuals that are, leaving or expressing a desire to leave. Right now, we have 3 vacancies now, and it is a commitment. People have to go through review a lot of these applications. So if you know of anyone that is interested that you feel would be fit the position well, please let me know so we can get them on board.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask, who vacated those seats?
Do we know the names of those? If not, I could send them to the council. So
That's fine.
One of those positions was vacated by Mario Suazo.
Yeah.
And the other position was, I forget who it was.
We got a couple of terms that are expiring in December, and been hearing off the record from a couple of sitting members that they may be interested in being replaced. So we have plenty of vacancies for anybody who wants to be on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
In fact, one of the people who's there now resigned, then took it back. So yes, there's a lot of space there for new blood.
You could let us know on those. Okay. Move for approval. Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item 11. Is there anything else from the mayor and council? Councilmember Peralta.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I would like to propose that the council at the next regular meeting have a workshop on the JPA and bring that up for discussion and work by the council on what has been done by staffs. My understanding is that the county commission is going to take it up on October 1st for review. So I think it would be good for us to take it up. And this gets to your point this morning, Mr. Mayor, that we move as quickly as we can to get this thing approved. And I think if we do that, we can get it done quickly.
Absolutely. I fully agree. I think that, Oscar, if we can keep the rather than have it a separate meeting, maybe keep the agenda short so that we can have plenty of time to go through each one of the points on the JPA. And if the meeting needs to be longer, then maybe at 6 o'clock.
Mr. Mayor, I might remind the mayor and council that the next regular meeting coincides with the next beta public meeting, one we had on, I don't know, when was it, last week? Anyway, there is a second one that falls on the next meeting date for this council. So to the extent that that impacts how we proceed, I mean, I think that people reacted very positively to the group that we presented last time in support of ABETA, and probably, although we've not had the conference call yet with the other ABETA parties, I suspect that we will be asked to provide that same group again, which includes the mayor.
What is the time for that meeting?
6 o'clock.
30-minute presentation. If I may, Mr. Mayor, this is some other information. I have gotten a request by TSA, the Taos Sports Alliance, and through some of you on the council as well, that we have go ahead and have a workshop with them to discuss, I guess, the future of Echo Park and their relationship to that. I have up until now, I have been counseling them that it would be best that we have that workshop after they presented a business plan as required in their contract. They communicated to me that they're at an impasse, that they need somehow input from the council before they can proceed. So if you want to have that workshop, they wanted to have it as soon as possible, and so a possibility could be that we have that workshop next week on the 3rd, and put other items on there, including the JPA.
Members of the council, I expressed my concern with, I have no problem having a workshop if we have a workable document in place that is the business plan that we've asked for. but to have a workshop to let them know again that we want a business plan. I think this council has been very loud and clear that we need a viable business plan, and how are they going to get this facility to have measurable results to us. So I have no problem having a workshop, but I think, I mean, it's up to the council if we want to, but in any course of business, when you ask for a business plan, you don't tell the person that's asking for that business plan, well, what do you want and what kind of business plan? I think you just deliver a business plan based on your expertise on that field, and then we discuss, does this meet the criteria? But I would, well, let's just put it that way. That's my concern of having a workshop. So does this council want to have a workshop even though there's no business plan submitted for staff to recommend or to at least analyze? Do we want to have this meeting and just to hear them out? But I guess my concern is I would hope that the Sports Alliance isn't in lieu of a business plan. Let's meet with the council to get support so that we don't have to do a business plan. I'm just going to say what I'm suspecting. So, council members.
Mr. Mayor, I think if I'm not opposed to the workshop as well, but I think, we do need to make it perfectly clear that the workshop should be in lieu of a business plan coming with it, and then we can build on consensus with them from that point, as opposed to us or them tasking us to give them the direction as to where they want to see their organization go. I think with regards to where we're at, we've done the crucial step, which is getting it built, and it's ball's kind of in their court to make its viability plausible.
So would it be fair to say that we want a business plan presented at that workshop?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, along that line, though, I would like to see a business plan given to the council before we have a workshop, so that we know there is something at the table to discuss. If we expect them to bring it in, it's kind of like what we asked for last year. We said we want a new business plan before the budget for this year, and we didn't get it. And so to expect to have a workshop meeting with, I guess, hot air, doesn't work. And so we've got to have something in writing, something that we can look at and analyze as to whether or not it's a viable working relationship that can move forward. And without that, what is it? Do we give them the business plan? Is that what they want us to do? Is tell them what we want them to do? No. They asked us to build this thing, and now they need to tell us how they intend to make it work, or they intend to tell us that it can't work. I don't know, but they've got to give us something for us to react to. But without that, I can't see having a workshop with them at any point in time. And so I just see it's foolish for us to sit around a table and talk. Sure. It's not getting us anywhere. And that's what I feel at this point we're at, without them giving us something to say, here's where we want to go with the resources, or here's where we want to go if we have additional resources, or whatever it might be that they think they can make work with what's there or with what they feel needs to be there. But we've got to have something to discuss before we sit down at the table.
I agree. I fully agree. So should we, plus I think that before the council gets to the council, I think that our manager has to vet it and look at, is it something that the manager can recommend to the council? Of course, it's completely at the discretion of the council, but at some point, we need to follow the process and make sure everybody's on board with this contract. We can't circumvent the process and then then I believe it's set up for failure. So I would recommend that along the lines that Councilmember Peralta is saying here, that a business plan be submitted. As soon as that business plan is submitted and vetted through the administrative side, then within 10 days, perhaps, a workshop can be scheduled.
I concur.
Is that okay? Okay.
Got it. And Mr. Mayor, with regards to that,
if we could make that very clear, so that because there's going to be members of the for the minutes, because they're going to be members of the Sports Alliance, they're going to ask why can't we have this workshop? And this is clear direction from the council.
So with regards to that, Mr. Mayor, and in fact, it's clarity. You know, I've always gone on record, and I can't speak for Councilmember Abeta, but you know, he's been pretty adamant about it too. He's, I think, the one that asked for this workshop. But with regards to it, you know, I think it needs to be understood that we need to see, you know, a viable plan put in place. You know, I'm 100% for continually funding, but at the same point, with what deliverables, what measurables can we rely on? So, you know, just as long as the message gets sent that, you know, this isn't a bash course to, you know, we don't want to discuss with you what the options are or what but you know, we need something back to us that echoes that it's a viable plan.
Okay.
Good.
Anything else from the council? Councilmember Silva.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple announcements. Last week at our Intergovernmental Council, it was discussed that there's a legislative luncheon being scheduled for December 12th, and we're all invited to participate, and we do have a monetary contribution of right at $1,547.50, which matches the county, and all the other stakeholders have proportionally dollars to contribute. Also, Enchanted Circle Day, the state legislature for January 22nd, and then also there was a gentleman by the name of John Gustorf who gave a presentation about renewable Taos. It's dealing with renewable energies, and I've invited him to come as soon as he can to give a presentation. He's looking for a resolution, a joint resolution with the county supporting this.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you.